Welcome to the Gresham-Barlow Board of Education, Wednesday, September 4th, 2024 special work session. We'll call us to order with roll call. In attendance, Chris Howitt, Chair, Kathy Keithley, Vice Chair, Blake Peterson, Director, David Likitich, Director, Holly Riegelman, Director, Dr. Myra Gomez, Director, and Dr. Sean Ferentz. With that, we have a quorum. So if I could get a motion to approve the meeting agenda as presented.
Second.
So it's been moved by Myra, seconded by David to approve the meeting agenda as presented. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. We have a guest with us this evening. What about your name?
Meyer.
Okay, I was just.
He knows.
Yeah. And with Mr. Meyer being here, we are going to go into an executive session.
Chris, Erica
Yes.
Fuller is also president, co-president.
Oh, right,
Thank
that's
you.
true.
All right.
My bad.
Okay.
Erica Fuller is also here this evening. Well, I was looking over at Hal's and I just went right on past. Okay, just went right on past. For you, you get a brownie now. This meeting is being recorded. Okay. That probably edited. All right, Erica, I'll let you do. So tonight, then, we are recessing into executive session under personnel ORS 192.660 paren 2 paren B. The Gresham-Barlow Board of Education will meet in executive session for the purpose of discussing the following. Personnel pursuant to ORS 192.660 paren 2 paren B. Executive sessions are closed to the public. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. And because we are virtual, Sarah, do we have anyone else online that, press or anyone that has come online?
It's just me.
And our next item of business is to hear about the District Equity Committee, Educational Equity Advisory Committee. So if you guys want to head out,
Thanks for joining.
there is
Thank you.
still
Much fun here tonight.
there's food in that. Tracy, you're gonna show them, you guys want to
I
get?
was gonna go get one.
Yeah. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. But yeah, there's still maybe a little bit of food.
And if you'd like food,
Dessert, yeah.
Thank you.
You're good.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
I'll be back later.
My goodness.
Okay.
I have. Bye, Erica.
Thanks for coming.
Sure. Hal is, what is health? What is health?
Hal
He's
is
the-
field representative.
Field rep.
Let's see if field rep.
And then, and then. Erica is the-
Terminated.
Yeah, where should I sit here?
She should, she decided on there.
Is it?
Her representative, but
It's.
they're not-
The person who's for it, under the.
Did she not know? Like,
So-
why didn't she?
We're being recorded. Yep. Okay.
Oh. thank you.
Dawn, you're here.
Hey.
That side, I'm having a hard time seeing that sign. I don't know if it's lights or what, but I miss Erica sitting over there. Like material.
No, even in this color.
All right, so good evening and welcome. You are here to speak to us about the what do we call it? The Educational Equity Advisory Committee,
Yep,
District Equity Committee. Okay.
so I sent some stuff just as a review because we
Mhm.
haven't really talked about it for a year. So I am gonna just read a couple of these or go over the main points. It used to be the Equity Advisory Committee,
Mhm.
the EEC, and now it's the DEC, the District Equity Committee, which I like a lot better. Well, it used to be the SEEK, then it was the EEC, now it's the DEC, right? So like the evolution of the group. It's Senate Bill 732. The bill requires that every district, starting 2 years ago, that had over 10,000 students, establish one of these. Next year, all districts have to have them. It is responsible for advising the school board and the superintendent on educational equity impacts of policy decisions and informing and advising you all and whoever's in the superintendency around school-based situations that arise. So giving advice and kind of guiding us through some possible solutions, pattern of bias. All of the rest of that is in there. I'm skipping to slide 4 in case anybody's following along, but basically during 23-24, we had a once a month meeting. And all of the notes for those were public and they were included in the school board committee notes. The month after the meeting. So that happened last year. On slide 5, it was an incredibly effective partnership with families and community members and students last year. And in fact, we ended up being, it sounds a little braggy, but we ended up being a model for a lot of people in the state. And we presented at 2 conferences around what our DEC was doing. And had multiple people, including the state, reach out just to kind of hear what we have done. So these are some of the things that the DEC did last year. They really heard the transformative social emotional learning design and gave feedback and kind of vetted some of the work that larger committee was doing that Carla is leading. We had a music adoption last year because we have such small music departments. The music teachers asked for assistance, and so we were able to bring those curriculum in front of that group, and students and families really looked through them and talked about what was important and gave feedback. We had a mentorship group that came and presented to all of you, the DOYs. The Gresham High School students who were going down to meet with the Dexter McCarty students around behavior and trying to get them to more positively connect with school. They came and presented their stuff to us, and everybody was able to see that and give feedback. They were able to advise on the disciplinary handbook rollout for students, families, and staff after it was developed. And they helped feedback for redesign of our website. They were really instrumental in terms of linguistic supports, catching a lot of things that existed in our website before. We would click on like bus routes and it would suddenly just go to English, for example. And so they really spent a lot of time interfacing with the proposed models and the actual website and gave a lot of good feedback. So anyway, a ton of things that they did last year. And then they also developed the survey that you all got to see the results of during the retreat. So the selection of committee members, you know, the state requires that we reach out to employees, students, community members, parents / families. As of right now, all of our staff members have stayed as a part of that group. And so we didn't need to replace any of our staff members. We had 2 students who graduated. So we needed 2 students and we decided to make it 3 because often students can't attend because of athletics, because they're working and we really want to have student voice. And then we had 2 parents whose students graduated. And one who just said she couldn't do it anymore. The other one whose student graduated. So we were in need of 2 family / parent applicants and 3 student applicants. And so we sent that out via ParentSquare to all district families, district-wide, and then we sent it to 8th through 12th graders. We really, we had opened it up to all middle schoolers last time, but it is a lot of responsibility to sit in that room and hold a public space, and we just decided 6th and 7th graders, they're just too young. So we sent it to all students 8 through 12. And we got back a ton of folks who applied. 71% of the people who applied were family members of a student and 28% were students. Last time we got like 5 applicants who were students, and this time we had 28% who were students, which made me feel so great about how much this has been talked about. You know, the people who were on the DEC go back and they share what's going on with their schools, and a ton more students applied. And so we went through them. We had the rubric, which I had shared last time, and everybody who met the rubric, there were very few people who didn't meet the rubric. A couple of examples of people who didn't meet the rubric or people who didn't answer any of the questions. One person said, all the rest of the people who applied are trash and I'm the best, so choose me. District Equity Committee, we decided to rule them out. I'm like, James, are you okay with me taking this one out? And then I went to all of the schools that they applied through. We had people from Gresham, from Barlow, from Springwater Trail. Yes, last time we had none of our non-comprehensive, or not, it's Springwater is a comprehensive, but we didn't have anybody from Springwater last time. We had families from Hollydale, North, Highland, Kelly Creek, Powell Valley, East Gresham, I already said that, East Orient, and DCD who applied. And of all of those folks, I then reached out to all of their principals and just said, do you know this person? We have students. Do you have any concerns about this person? There were two folks that the principal said
Not a good fit.
wouldn't be a good fit. And so all the rest of them we looked at, and then we had multiple people look at them, and this is who we came up with. We have 3 students and 3 family members.
What schools do the new team members come in?
One from, we had no middle schoolers apply, and I even went out and tried to recruit, and they just were like, nah, no thanks. But we do have a 9th grader, a 10th grader, and an 11th grader, which made me feel really good. So one student from Gresham-Barlow, one from Gresham High School, and one from Springwater Trail. Our family members are, one of our family members actually has has been a partner, works for a partnership organization through OHSU and the health department. And so, and he's also a sub, and he also has 4 siblings in our district. And then we have one person who is a parent from North Gresham. And she is also works for the state and has done a lot of partnership work and has a kid at North Gresham. And then one is a Springwater Trail coming from the east side of the county. Her kids went through the Orients and then Barlow and now in our Springwater Trail. So she has that perspective. So pretty diverse folks in terms of their lived experience and in terms of like the schools that they're in. You say anything, James?
No, I appreciate the number of applicants that have to sit through. There's actually quality students and community members that applied, and looking forward to meeting with both this year. Students are always the ones that I always am impressed because the students have quite a bit to say to us, and they speak to me in a manner which causes me to have some urgency in things that we're doing. And, you know, as you folks have listened to some of our students, when it comes to them sharing their experiences with us, them sharing, you know, kind of their perspectives and opportunities for us to improve as a school district. Certainly take that to heart, and then with our families, kind of the same thing. We're gathering information, but you know, actually, when you went over the list of the different things that we've done, I was, yep.
It was a busy
I
year.
can't remember, it was all 23, 24 students.
Yeah.
On how many applicants were, know they were divided up by percentages, but how many total people did? you get?
28. Mhm.
Well, how was that like versus last year?
Well, we had staff apply and we sent it out to community. We had 64 this time. So it was, we put it out to a wider group of people too.
And it's
Yeah,
just for 1
28.
year. Or
It's for
staggered.
2 years.
And so
It's for 2 years, so it'll be staggered. So this group that we have, Juani, Michael, Cindy, Jasmine, Araceli, Erasto, and Diana are current
Mhm.
folks who are continuing on. And just to our students from that group, one person is now in Miwa. And used to be at Gresham High School, and one person's at Sam Barlow. And we have a pretty diverse group of folks there. They'll continue on this year, and then we will be coming at this again next fall to replace this group. But these other folks will stay on. And I kind of like the way that this has turned out, that we're replacing folks not all at once.
Mhm.
So that the kind of institutional knowledge of the group is passed on to the next group. Yeah.
We'll open it up to questions for the board, because I know that this is going to be an action item at the business meeting.
Yes.
So, should let you folks have at this point in time.
What is the building up problems of practice for admin to build and learn from?
I didn't talk about that one. That was a great one. So we decided, instead of just saying, you know, what's not going right at your school, that we would allow them to talk about things that they had seen that they thought could be better in their schools in terms of belonging and equity. They brought those forward, and then they helped plan how that would go out to admin. So, for example, a student showed up, a family showed up at one of our schools in East County and walked in to ask for assistance, and somebody in the office said, our multilingual liaison isn't here today. We can't help you.
Mhm.
And that mom works in the fields. And it was the only time she had ever showed up at school or been able to show up at school, right? And so she didn't get what she needed.
Have to
And
translate.
somebody, right, exactly.
Mhm.
There's so many ways. And so it was a really great problem of practice to come forward, because then we worked with counselors, we worked with secretaries, like, how could we solve this, right? And then the district equity committee actually said how they would have solved it. And so we presented it to admin. How would you have solved it? Well, here's how they would have. And people were like, oh yeah, we crossed over here. Ooh, we never thought of this. And so it was this really great way for all of us to learn. We also brought a lot of those problems of practice to our coach team and to our counselors.
So that you gave one example, how many did is it, how do you have it on the agenda, like whenever it comes up, or do you seek them out? And how many have you problem solved,
Mhm.
would you say?
I think we brought it up twice last year. We have an open time every meeting to bring up anything that's coming up for people. It's like an open time for people to bring things up, and that was varied.
Yeah.
People brought up transportation issues, people brought up
Communication.
all different kinds of things, but in terms of a guided problem of practice, we did it twice.
And so how do you decide, because it's obviously the building up of problems of practice, so that's like a thing, that's like something that you
It is.
identify and then keep going. How do you decide if it goes in there versus just like the bottom one is brought forward situations and patterns in schools? So what differentiates those two?
Cause one is, I think the way that we talked about it, and we asked them for feedback, one is a learning situation, it's complex to be a learning situation. Some it's black and white, right?
Yeah.
Like this happened, ooh, that can't happen, this has to happen, there's no gray, there's no, right? It's like, nope, this can't happen this way. Some of them, some of them would go into being complaints or let's talks.
And then I would bring that to with you.
Yes.
We would talk through that. How would you handle this differently? It's always a learning experience. It's not an accusatory.
But these were like rich
Mhm.
opportunities for looking at our system and how it could change. That makes sense.
So the defined roles of the DEC inform the school district board and superintendent of district-wide climate. And then the other one is things that negatively or positively implant a response. Both of those things, and exactly what you just said, the inclusion, the belonging, those are exactly the things that we're looking at in the board goals for how we can. We're just always looking at how we can go out and feel a difference or know what the issues are. And since you're informing the district board, I mean, especially because most of the things on your list, they don't come through on the minutes. The minutes are not detailed to understand this. So like the music adoption, it's the fact that we have this DEC in being involved in that is so awesome, but we don't get any of was there things that were missing? What did you include? What were you able to change? How were you able to affect a change, some kind of a substantive difference in what we adopted music wise? Because that's the information we need to match our goals, So how do we get some of that?
This is an advisory board, so they're advising, but they certainly wouldn't be involved in kind of the outcome of that. That's the operational piece of it that would then go to the board, go to James and whoever else you put it in their lap, right? Would then make that decision. This is really kind of hearing and giving ideas and more of a think, take and advisory. So I hear what you're saying. That's a good question for James in terms of what happens after the advising happens, but they don't really hold the work.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're still trying to work through the DEC is the fact that the state has stated that this is an advisory to both the superintendent and the board. And it's very challenging because if you're an advisory to the superintendent, that's one thing. And then when you're advisory to the board, it's another thing. But this is a combination of both of those things together. And I think that we've tried to navigate through that as sensitively as possible. And as this next year kind of rolls out, where the expectation from the state is going to be every school district in the state of Oregon, all 197 districts have to have a DEC available. And I know that some school districts are navigating through it a little bit more differently. I know that one neighboring district actually has, once we have our DEC meetings, or they have their DEC meetings, they actually, invite a board member to share information with. So that can be updated to the board at a board meeting instead of just the actual notes. So there can be more complexity and detail because, our notes are not meant for everybody to see specific data. It's just really generally what we've done in different meetings. So I think there are probably some ways that we can look to improve our communication and certainly share out because there's a lot of rich conversations. And of course, the challenge with the DEC is that while this is an advisory to the board is not invited to actually attend the meeting. It's actually more advisory to the superintendent where we have a group of families and students and district staff that are there. We're required because of public meeting laws to provide meeting notes. But we also want people to feel that they can share openly and honestly. So that's one of the things that we're going to continue to keep working through because there's no defined expectation and process. We're kind of developing those as we move along, and we haven't been told that we're not accurate by the state at this point in time.
Well, and I think that it really is true because my gosh, they just said, here, do this and then couldn't, so we put it off and now we did, and obviously you've done a great job of trying to pull it together, but I do think there might be some benefit to conversation, just so that we're taking advantage of the information that we're getting
And the
to the
experiences
extent that we
that-
can
Yep,
have.
yep.
The board, in terms of meeting our board goals, it's all about the board goals, and this is information that you know, and I think we just need to do it strategically, so we're getting what we need
I
as
agree.
much as we can, but staying within the confines of what the expectations are, but we're still developing that. So I think it's an important conversation for the board to have.
And I'll work with our leadership team to take a look at this conversation tonight and see what we can do to kind of share the information a little bit more broadly and with a little bit more specificity and detail this next year, as we now have, you know, going through the identification of board goals and where that might plug in and where that might fit and opportunities for us to share the information.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I
I love
love,
that.
I love the student voice. In reading through the slides, felt like we haven't been informed in this group, and it is
Mhm.
to inform the board, and I haven't really felt like that committee has informed us. So I would love to see, I mean, I love the student voice, and I think they have, like you said, they have a lot to say and they love to share
Yes,
it.
they
And so, but we want to hear it from them too. So.
And I think there's a variety of ways we can accomplish that, and now is a great time. The first couple of years, you know, you feel like you've got a
Mhm.
momentum and a process that can be substantiated, and so now we need to figure out how we can take advantage of the data and you know, not just data. I mean, even to the point that once in a while, a board member comes and just gets an, you know, feel from the committee, not a decision, just so that, you know, it's a little bit more informal other than here, and because we've really only, you know, heard on one of these things directly from the committee, twice, two, I guess, with the disciplinary handbook, and all of it would be really good information.
Can you give me,
I know we've talked about that.
can you give me a couple of wins that you're very proud of out of this, what's developed out of this committee?
Yeah, I mean, all of the things that I talked about in terms of the accomplishments. I mean, I think being able to have students and families develop our survey that goes out to families instead of it coming from a think tank back east. I mean, that's what we were using, to be honest with you. And really thinking about the problems of practice. I thought that we brought those to ILT in multiple groups, and they were really deep conversations and really did change practice. And how to roll out the district, I mean, the disciplinary handbook. I mean, that I developed slides that went out to all of the principals, and they rolled that out to all their staffs last week. And part of that work was developed in this group. They had some really beautiful suggestions.
And it was time that we shared equally between our students and our families and our staff. It wasn't, I mean, I think you facilitated, we didn't necessarily lead the work. We participated in the conversations and we gathered a lot of information and notes, but there was a lot of learning from the district's point. I know I learned quite a bit from listening to our students, but certainly even the experiences of our families and our staff. So for me, that was probably, you know, where I got the most value from the meetings, just making sure that we, you know, have an open opportunity to have these conversations on a regular basis with all constituents within the community. I mean, I felt like I was gathering some information and hearing directly from people about what's actually going well, what's actually not going well. And then I was able to follow up with different peers and teams and everything. buildings. And it wasn't from the, like, what's going wrong, it's like, how can we be better? So those problem practices, I think that's actually really helpful when we brought experience and we broke up big groups and we said, here's the problem of practice, what would you do? And there were varied experiences and varied things that were out there. And I think there was learning from everybody, not just district office leadership, but building leadership and folks from the facilities department and folks from different departments. So at least from my perspective, I got a lot of value from those things and I actually look forward to going to those meetings like I do every meeting.
Do you really though? Every meeting,
Yeah,
every.
public meeting.
I have just a quick question, just kind of validating it. I just agree. This is a very clunky process. A great thing that's happening, very clunky from the state's implementation standpoint. Because I'm not sure what our role is, but here we are gonna approve folks that we don't know. With great faith in who you're selecting. So my question about composition is just, from a disciplinary standpoint and an academic achievement standpoint, our young men are lacking, and particularly our young men of color. Don't necessarily see that as a representative. But it's not a representative selection, but do you feel like the composition of the group can continue to address some of those underlying issues?
I think it
I
is
think it's-
representative, just so you.
Okay, I think, okay, how many men, women, or non-binary are there?
We have 2 male students and 2 female students, 3 female students. And we have 1, 2, 3 men who were dads or family members. Right? Trying to like do the
Okay.
math, yeah.
Okay,
And so, yeah, I mean, we definitely had more females apply than men.
Mhm.
Surprise, surprise.
Are the meetings held during the day?
They're held at night.
So they are, so that would not,
5 to
so that
7.
would be more approachable for people.
And we asked for that feedback too,
Okay.
and this was by far, 5 to 7 was the sweet spot, where like 85 to 87%, depending on both of the applications, people said they could make it. There were a couple people who were like making it work. We do offer childcare, we do offer assistance with transportation, but that was the sweet spot. Like any later, they're like, we can't be gone.
Getting kids. there.
And they couldn't get there earlier.
so I'm hearing about, you said about 6 out of 13, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you remind me, is there a limit to how many people can be on this? And would there be benefit to more if there was a subcommittee that was reviewing the rollout of the disciplinary handbook, or, in some fashion, just make the group a little bit bigger?
Yeah, so I think we had talked about this for the last couple of years and we wanted to
Yeah.
make sure it was representative, but we didn't want so many people to be there that people couldn't contribute and participate. And so we actually added 2 additional folks this year
Okay.
because what we had last year was 2 less. So we added 1 more student and 1 more family member because we felt like, there's going to be potential conflicts and we wanted to make sure we had a sufficient group of folks that would engage in the processes. And so this year we did add 2 additional people versus, like last year, I think we lost a couple of people somewhat early on and then we had 2 less people that were not participating. And we wanted to make sure that, again, with kids, we understand because things happen, particularly with high school kids. And so adding the extra high school kid actually was a good thing. And then with the families, and parents have things that happen too. And we just felt like adding additional, I think this, to be honest, like in the room is a group of about as many people that is in here. And so when we're going through the agenda, making sure that, students have a voice and they're able to contribute and then our families have a voice. And then we have district staff that are also participating as well. It seems to be a good number in the 10, 12 spot. I think anything more in the 2 hours that we had probably may not necessarily get the things accomplished. At least that's what we're going to try this year. And then if through this year we decide that there's some potential either to add more or even to drop back off, by a couple, I think that the team will make that decision.
Okay. All right.
I have one quick question.
Okay.
And I wouldn't expect it because it's so time intensive, but I'm really curious about the two families that might not have been a good match from the staff's perspective. But it's really interesting to me that they read enough and were interested enough to engage in the process. And so I would love to have, but had you be able to talk to everybody, get their input, because that's like a survey in itself. What drew you to want to be on here? What would you hope to accomplish, especially for parents that might not be engaging as appropriately as they can?
So for the two families that I took off, given building feedback, both of those principals have reached out to those families and they are gonna be involved in their schools.
Other way.
In leadership.
Yeah.
The concern was more about appropriateness with teenagers present.
Yeah.
But absolutely, I love that too. And all of the people who apply, I send them on like these, and it says even in the application, we're not gonna select everybody, but there will be other opportunities. And thank you so much for putting your name forward. Last year, we had several community members who were really involved in things, and I sent them over to Carla and they ended up like volunteering through CTE. It's a great way to get folks who really want to be involved.
So,
And it's not only a great way, but just it would be so important. Anytime anybody steps forward and wants to do something like a non-negotiable, someone will get back to them and engage them in another way if they can't be this way, because they want to be engaged. And whenever you have that,
Yeah.
you've got to take full advantage of it.
I agree.
speaking of engagement, we have another one coming up. So
Yes.
thank you, and we have you on our action item, and I don't know if there'll be further questions that we can ask at that time.
Okay.
Mostly it's adopting the people that are the recommended folks for the committee. And
Cool.
so if we have other questions about that. So with that, there being no other business in this meeting, we'll be headed out to the regular board business meeting, starts at 7 PM, in the council chambers, Public Safety and Schools Building, and we are adjourned. See you out front.
Thank you, Dawn.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.